What is your definition of child abuse?
Child abuse would be any physical contact that's against a child's will.
What age do you think most child abuse occurs?
Probably younger when they don't have control. Like maybe it can start like as early as a toddler, but up until that point where you feel you don't have the right to stand up for yourself. So maybe like 2 to 15.
Yeah. Do you know where to report child abuse?
I would say, I feel like any human nature is to immediately go to someone you're closest to, and then from there probably report it to the authorities, whether it's the police, and tell them what you see.
What is your definition of child abuse?
I would say it's when a child is either sexually abused, touched in an inappropriate way, or they're physically abused, they're like beaten or bruised.
What age do you think most child abuse occurs?
Between the ages of 4 and 7.
How often do you think child abuse occurs in Tampa?
Probably every day, like 3 times a day, I think.
And do you know where to go to report child abuse?
No.
What are some actions you could do to prevent child abuse?
You could probably call the cops and have them talk to the parents, or talk to the child individually to make sure that they're not actually being abused, or they can falsely say they're being abused and don't really know what it is. Well, I guess find the hotline for child abuse and report them.
Hurting a child or making a child do something they don't want to do.
What age do you think the most child abuse occurs?
Probably between like 6 and 12.
Do you know where to report child abuse?
The police.
How often do you think child abuse occurs in the United States?
Too much. A lot.
What about in Tampa?
Tampa, I hope not that much.
What is your definition of child abuse?
Anything that's neglectful to children, like physical abuse, mental abuse, like starving them, anything that like hurts their health or well.
How often do you think child abuse occurs in the United States?
Every day.
What about Tampa?
Every day.
What age do you think most child abuse occurs?
Probably the youngest, right? Like when they're babies.
Do you know where to report child abuse?
To the police.
And what are some actions you could do to prevent child abuse?
There should be like better, like screening, I guess, if like in schools, if kids like are getting too thin or if they show up with bruises or stuff like that.
What is your definition of child abuse?
Well, child abuse could be many things. I mean, it could be physical, it could be emotional. I think it's when a parent pushes their limits a little too far and either lays a hand on their child or reprimands them in a certain manner that'll be negative in the long run.
How often do you think child abuse occurs in Tampa?
In Tampa, I mean, I'm relatively new to the area. Been here for a year, so I don't really know how things work, but I would say child abuse in general happens more often than people believe.
What about in the United States?
Like I said, I believe child abuse is pretty prominent in society. I believe it happens quite often.
What age do you think child abuse occurs most?
Age-wise, I would say from the ages of 8 to 16, just because that's where a child is learning the most, and that's where it's experiencing the most things. Because once you're past that early teenager stage, you pretty much know who you are and what you're doing and everything. And in your early ages, from 8 to 16, it could get a little crazy. So parents might go crazy as well.
Do Do you know where to report child abuse?
311? 911? Something 11?
What are some actions you could do to prevent child abuse?
To prevent child abuse, I mean, awareness is key. Awareness has to be number one. Just as anything, awareness always lets people know about it, so that can always help. YMCAs and Boys and Girls Clubs can also help, so I'm sure they have peer mentors and people they can speak to. And if anyone has a sibling on campus, there's people they can talk to on campus. Victim advocates. 211. I do not think it was right to fire Joe Paterno. My reason behind it is because Joe Paterno is one of the greatest coaches there'll ever be. But the man had nothing to do with the scandal, as we know now. What details come out later, we'll find out. And I believe Penn State had to just fire him just to prove their point and save their own behind, as any college or professional business would. If there's a scandal, they fire everyone, get the bad news out, and try to fix the problem as it lies.
No, I do not think it was right to fire him. He was not the one. He was not the one that was molesting the boys. Even though he did know about it, it's still not his fault. He did tell his upper staff, and they didn't do anything about it either. And he is the face of Penn State football. I do not feel he should have been fired.
Everyone who he told who knew about it should have done more.
So do you think it was right to fire her?
Yes.
Yeah.